Hello, people. Today, I want to go over what it really takes to make a hit record in the music industry. Now, people have a lot of misconceptions on what it really takes to create a record. Well, to create a record, you need about 6 to 8 people. Now, this sounds really uncommon because you might just buy a little setup and you might think that you could just find some beats and that you could just do it all yourself. But it's a much more complicated process if you're really trying to have a better chance of making a hit record. First thing that you need for a hit record, you need an artist. Now, the artist is needed because somebody has to go on tour or somebody has to be able to perform the hit record. So the artist gives the opportunity for somebody to be the brand of that record. Sometimes an artist might make the beat or write the songs, but it's kind of uncommon. The next thing that you need is you need a songwriter. Now, the songwriter, like I said before, sometimes it's the artist, but most times, in most cases, the songwriter, especially if he or she is doing it for a living, is not the artist. Now, this person responsible for writing the lyrics to the song and maybe handling some other responsibilities that we'll go over later. The third thing that you'll need is the third person that you'll need is you need the music producer, which is also called a beat maker. Now, the music producer is responsible for making the actual music to the track that the songwriter writes to and the artist performs to. Now, this person is critical. Now, the third person that you're going to need is you're going to need a recording engineer. You're going to need a studio. When you go to the studio, your recording engineer is the person who tracks the music the way that you all envision the record. So, but the common misconception is that the recording engineer is not the mixing engineer. Usually, if the recording engineer has an adequate amount of training, then he or she can perform the job of a mixing engineer. But if you're really trying to do things on the highest level, then maybe you might just want to find somebody who specializes in recording, and then find somebody who specializes in mixing. So now we have four people. We have the artist, we have the songwriter, we have the music producer, or which is called the beat maker, and we also have the recording engineer. Now, while in the studio, you're gonna need a couple, what I feel like are key areas. You're gonna definitely need a vocal producer. Now, it's uncommon in rap, but now, me, being an engineer myself or engineering for some years, I'm finding out that rap is becoming more melodic. So rappers need to know what notes to stay on. Now, vocal producers have been critical to the pop genre and the R&B genre because the vocal producer, he or she is the person responsible for guiding the artist through the record, making sure they're staying on notes, on pitch, hitting the right notes, and also being able to express the song in a said manner that makes the record heartfelt or the fit the quality of the song that they're going for. This is a very important person. Now, one of the important factors to note is that the songwriter could act as the vocal producer in a lot of cases because a lot of times the songwriters are vocalists themselves. So they wrote the song and you know now songwriters nowadays have to be able to cut their own demos. So they're already doing their own vocal arrangements. But to do things on the highest level, you might want to hire like a Rico Love or a Cook Burrell who can guide you through a record. So now that's the fifth person. The sixth person that we're going to need is we're going to need a record producer. Now, the record producer, just like a vocal producer, is responsible for guiding the artist through the record. But the exception to the record producer, that he also has to oversee the producer as well, because if they want to make changes to the overall track, he's responsible for listening to levels in the mix. He's responsible for looking over maybe the vocal producer as well and aiding him and delivering the emotion to the record. So the record producer is very, very important. And the record producer doesn't necessarily need any expertise in music per se, like somebody who would be able to play piano or be a beat maker himself or write even lyrics. He or she just has to have a great fight night ear for music, sort of like a Diddy does. I don't know if Diddy writes songs or make beats, but which I probably doubt, but he has an incredible ear for hit records. You know, so the next person that we're gonna need after that, I think our seventh person, is the mixing engineer. Now the mixing engineer, unlike the tracking engineer, doesn't track the vocals. His or her job is to make sure that all of the levels in the instruments as well as the vocals all blend together in a perfect harmony where you have a great sounding record. You know, make sure that all of the effects are hitting where they need to, and this is the person responsible for bringing the song to life. Now, the person we need after the mixing engineer in the final phase is the mastering engineer. The mastering engineer, people a lot of times think that mixing and mastering are that people can do one job. It's hard. These are two different schools, mixing and mastering. Mastering is basically once the track is done and all the levels are brought to life, the mastering engineer to make sure that the levels are adequate for radio, they're adequate for distribution, and they sound good on everything. That they sound that whether you're playing the music from a small source or a large source, that we know it's bassy enough, that we have, you know, everything comes together. So mixing is to make sure that everything sounds good. Mastering is the glue and the gloss. So that's what you have. You have about 8 people. You have the artist, you have the songwriter, you have the producer, you have the recording engineer, you have the vocal producer, you have the recording record producer, you have the mixing engineer, and lastly you have the master engineer. So next time you make a record, you remember that whether you're doing the job of 2 of these people or 3 of these people, just keep in mind what it takes to make a hit record. So a lot of people might ask the question, if it takes that many people to create a hit record, then how are we going to get paid? Now, the thing about the music industry is a very beautiful industry, because when you talk about the music industry, you're really talking about 4 different businesses. A lot of people think 3, but I say 4 different businesses. You have the record industry, which is basically selling of the actual records, hard copies, digital downloads, streaming, things of that nature. We're selling records. Then we have the publishing side. Now, on the publishing side, the songwriter, or if it's the artists or the separate songwriters and producers, they could make money off of the song well after the artist's career is over, or well after their career is over, because they're publishing. You're talking about licensing records, licensing music to film, commercials, and any opportunities where you can seek opportunities to license records. You know, you could be licensing records 100 years from now. Then you have the touring industry, which is very lucrative for the artists, because in major record deals, artists don't make a lot of money per se off the actual sale of the records, but this is where the artist shines at, the touring. You know, doing major venues, doing smaller venues, club venues, etc. Bookings, just general. And the last business is not directly connected, but brand and endorsements and sponsorships. You're talking about Sprite deals and, you know, shoe deals and clothing deals and just all kind of brand opportunities, sponsorships, and endorsements that come along with having a hit records. Hit records create opportunities for all of those businesses at the same time to hit on all cylinders. So it's plenty money, it's plenty lucrative. It's lucrative enough to feed everybody in that situation. So when you're thinking about a record, don't be afraid to invest and going to get the specialists in the area that you need that could really help you where you're weak at. Because a lot of times what we do, since we have a lot of resources and that anybody can just record a song off of a laptop, we feel like we don't feel the need to go hire specialists in this area. There's certain people like a Diddy, or people who have Diddy-like skills in record producing, who understand what hit records sound like and can say, hey, no on that part, bring this part, say this on that part, and bring a record to life and take your average record to make it a hit. So this is Fedarro. You know, that's my expertise on what it takes to make a hit record. So next time that you're thinking about making a hit record, just keep in mind that, you know, you want to break it down, and don't be afraid to get some help. It's Fedarro.